What if there's a way to drive a whole bunch of revenue in your e-commerce business that had absolutely nothing to do with ad spend? And therefore, it was extremely high margin revenue in your business, high value revenue in your business, and much, much more of it created contribution margin that trickled to the bottom line of your business. That is what is possible when you have a high LTV business. I've talked about this before in plenty of places, but LTV is magical in e-commerce. It's one of the things that makes e-commerce a great business model. When customers come back and buy from you over and over, particularly when they can buy a product in a way where it makes a huge amount of sense to just like have it sent to their house all the time. They don't need to go to a store. The delivery mechanism of e-commerce, i.e. shipping straight to a customer's house, is a good way to deliver your product, and it's convenient for the customer. It's a good experience for them. When those things are true in an e-commerce business, when you start driving LTV, it is possible to create an extremely good e-commerce business. And I would say actually the very best e-commerce businesses that I look at, and by best, I mean fastest growing and most profitable and most upside, I mean really just most valuable businesses to anybody, even if you just sort of put it in terms of enterprise value. They are all, many of them have, not all of them, but many of them have massive LTV. Now, there are exceptions to this for sure. You look at the Simple Moderns of the world, which has some LTV. You look at Ridge, you look at Loop earplugs, some of those really large, really impressive businesses. I'm not sure any of those businesses have great LTV, if much at all. Simple Modern maybe has the most of the group I said there. I'm not sure. I don't have access to all their numbers, but they're not traditional LTV powerhouses, right? And I should just clarify really fast. By LTV, I mean returning customer revenue, right? So multiple purchases from a customer. When you acquire a customer, they come back and buy more. So when I think about those brands, like it's definitely possible to build a very good e-commerce business apart from that. But it is just a cheat code if customers are worth a lot more to you. I mean, it's that simple, right? If you buy a customer on the internet, on meta ads, and that's really what you're trying to do, right? Customer acquisition cost. That's what we talk about, buying a customer. If you do that and that customer is worth a lot of money to you, it creates more value in your business. That's a really simple idea, but it's really helpful. So what I want to do right now is walk through for you. I mean, you probably know that, right? You know that that's true. But what I want to do for you right now is walk through for you how to go about driving returning customer revenue, driving LTV in your business, and really thinking about LTV in your business because it is so powerful, all right? So I'm going to give you 6 core elements of thinking about and driving more LTV in your business so you can get your head around it, okay? So 6 core elements. So number 1, most like the starting place for all of this is you need to start tracking it directly. I simply almost never look at a Shopify dashboard at this point that reports revenue because I am not interested in just revenue. I am interested in the difference between new and returning customer revenue. I want to know whether or not the revenue I'm getting is from new customers driven primarily by my ads, or if it is returning customer revenue, and that way I can think about both of them differently because they are so different in your business. The way you create that revenue, generate that revenue in your business is really different. So you need to start breaking down your business that way, thinking about your business that way. And I would just say, make it so that your native dashboard, like the number 1 dashboard you're looking at in Shopify or whatever tool you're using, I don't care, splits out new and returning customer revenue. So you see it, learn it, and start getting your head around how much is being driven in your business. You need to understand it, even if you don't do anything with it quite yet. The first step to increasing it, right, is to measuring it, right? And you manage what you measure. That phrase is really true. You manage what you measure. So start measuring it. Start thinking that way. Stop looking at your native Shopify dashboard. Instead, pull up. I just have this bookmarked for all of my clients. I just have a link to a new and returning customer revenue report, so that every day when I look at the revenue that my clients are getting, I'm looking at the new and the returning customer revenue separately. So start there and then go the next step. Okay, once you've got your head around it, and this is part of the management of your LTV. Forecast it. Forecast your business using a cohort-based forecast, splitting out new and returning customer revenue. This will help you in every possible way to think about what is really happening in your business. Now, this is a big job. Running a cohort forecast took me a little while to get my head around. It's not that easy. It's going to take you some time and some effort. There's a couple resources that I'm going to tell you right now that are going to help you to do this, but it's really necessary because if you can start thinking about how an ad today or a customer today, a new customer today, creates value over the long term of your business, you can think so much better about optimizing lots of the things you're doing. That includes thinking about your OpEx, thinking about where to put your energy, thinking about which products to focus on, thinking about sort of what kind of profit and cash is likely to flow in your business. It's just really hard to forecast your business well without doing these sorts of things. Otherwise, you're just guessing too much. So, you really should be forecasting your business this way. And the best businesses that I see actually live and die on their cohort forecast. They understand and internalize it, and they think about it and they measure it. And on their weekly and monthly reporting, and this is actually how I do my weekly and monthly reporting with my clients, we report separately new customer revenue forecast versus new customer revenue actual, returning customer revenue forecast versus returning customer actual. And that's built off of a cohort forecast. I was actually talking with a brand recently that was launching from scratch. And even from scratch with no returning customer revenue, we took a guess and looked together at how much returning customer revenue we expected, so that even from day one, we had the beginning of a forecast of this, so we could begin to understand actuals versus our expectations and plan the business in real time, so that from the moment the business launches, we're thinking about these separate. So let me give you a couple resources that are going to help you think about forecasting your revenue based with a cohort forecast. First, go to my website, ajfgrowth.com, sign up on the email there. There's an email pop-up, or you can just go to the footer that references 4 essential e-commerce resources. One of those is a link to a pre-built, templated, including a guide, cohort forecast that you can use. And you can split it off of there in a bunch of different ways, but there's actually a walkthrough for how to use the sheet there. It's from a venture capital firm called Lightspeed Ventures that they built to help their brands forecast their revenue over time. It's really, really, really helpful, and it's totally free. And I will link out to that for you. And there's a couple other really good resources in there as well, for that matter. So ajfgrowth.com, sign up for my email list. I'm not going to spam you, and go get access to that. That is a starting place for it, because it's a massive, beautiful Google sheet that you can build off of. Okay. Secondly, sign up for Admission. I've talked about this before, but Admission from CTC, every bit of how they are thinking about growing e-commerce businesses starts with a forecast and includes a cohort-based forecast. They are thinking this way. Start taking their courses. There's a bunch of different stuff in there about how to that sort of touches on cohort forecasting. I have a link to Admissions, an affiliate link, in the show notes of this video or this podcast. Wherever you're watching or listening to it, there's a link, and that will actually, if you sign up for Admission, that will actually give you also a free coaching call. And you could actually use that coaching call probably to get some help with your cohort forecast. And that's really awesome. So there's all kinds of other great stuff in Admission, but if you want to begin to think this way about your business, think the way I do about e-commerce businesses, Admission is the place to go do it. There's also a 30-day money back guarantee for Admission. So if you go in there, you can't find what you're looking for, there's really no risk to you. So yeah, the link for that's in the show notes. Use the affiliate link. That way you get the free call with it. All right. Okay, so go do that. Learn to forecast your business that way. It is a huge thing. Okay, so once you have that, once you're measuring returning customer revenue separately, once you're forecasting returning customer revenue separately, you start to notice all these little dynamics in your business. And what I'm going to share with you from number 2 through 6 here are the ones that I have noticed over a long time of doing this. Okay. I've now run a lot of cohort forecasts and measured a lot of returning customer revenue in a lot of different e-commerce businesses. And so there's some themes that I see in terms of how to affect it and how to think about it both. Okay. And so number 1 is you need to measure and forecast it. Number 2, returning customer revenue is more durable than you think, surprisingly durable. Okay. There is a rule in software, in software forecasting called, I think it's Andrew Chen, right? I'm just going to quote it. It's called the law of shitty cohorts. Okay. And the idea is that your early adopters for software are much better quality customers than your later adopters. Your early adopters are the super fans. They're much more durable. And so you can forecast your LTV to be much higher on your earlier customers than your later ones. And a lot of people in e-commerce have assumed that's also true. Now, the classic version of this is like, oh, I don't know, if we acquire customers with Facebook ads, I bet they won't be as good of customers as our organic customers. And what I'm here to tell you is that with rare exception, that's actually not true. It is surprising how much LTV cohorts, I mean, at least in my experience, up to $50 million in revenue for an e-commerce business, like a pretty good sized business. Actually, your your newer cohorts and your Facebook ads driven cohorts and those kinds of things, even if you acquire them with some kind of a discount, they are surprisingly durable cohorts. That is, they actually are more forecastable to be like your past cohorts than you think, which is really good news for you. You should still forecast the future relatively conservatively because it's always better to miss with more money than with less money. And so I like to beat my return on customer revenue by 5 to 10% every week, every month. That to me is like the sort of ideal outcome rather than even hitting it directly, because that means that I'm forecasted in a way where if anything went wrong, I wouldn't get caught with my pants down in the business, right? So, so to speak. So that's like a really helpful and encouraging thing. But over and over, when I talk to e-commerce operators, they're all really nervous that okay, great, we're going to go set a CAC target based off of this LTV. But what if our future LTV is worse than our past LTV? And again, with rare exception, that's mostly not the case. The exceptions that I have seen are when the earliest batch of customers for a brand come through a deep relationship with an influencer who started the brand. Okay. So if an influencer started the brand, specifically a thought leader, if a thought leader started the brand and their very first group of customers came from their organic channels, like let's say that thought leader has a podcast or, a Twitter feed or an Instagram channel or whatever that has a bunch of devotees, a blog, people who've read and paid attention to their content for a long time. Those customers sometimes actually are better than your other ones. But that's like a very small group ultimately. That's typically like your first few months of customers and that's it. Pretty much past that, your future customers, in my experience, are like your past customers in most cases, okay? Assuming you're advertising the same product, you've got the same setup, etc. In fact, if you do some of the things I say in this episode, it's possible that your future customers will be better than your past customers because you will do the work of optimizing that. Again, now I'm not going to forecast that, but it's worth noting that it's definitely possible to do, okay? Okay, so number 2, so it's more durable than you think. Your customers are more durable, more reliable than you think. Number 3, something that I think almost everybody underrates about LTV is that it lasts longer than you think. In e-commerce, we have a way of talking about 60-day LTV, 90-day LTV, 3-month LTV, or 1-year LTV, but nobody ever talks past that 1-year LTV. You should be sending the best quality data from your website back to your Meta Ads account, and you can do that with the third-party Pixel 100% server-side tracking using the Conversions API at BILY, BILY.ai. BILY is incredible software. First of all, if you currently have your Facebook Ads Pixel installed on your website, on your Shopify store with a native Shopify integration, go stop right now, go to BILY.ai, sign up for $1 for the first 30 days, and make sure that you change it out so that you are using BILY instead of the Shopify native integration to do that installation. I guarantee you, and I know this because I have tested it across multiple stores, BILY is what I use for almost all of my clients to do their Facebook ad tracking on their Shopify store, their purchase tracking, etc., all their event tracking. I've run split tests on my Facebook ads accounts to see that BILY drastically outperforms the native Shopify integration at the level of ROAS, at the level of purchases, all those things. It just works better, and it is validated by a much higher event match quality score in Events Manager every time I do this. So that pixel just works better. It tracks more and better data according to Facebook itself, according to the data that you have there. It's also incredibly easy to install, and that's really nice. It's like a one-click install, basically. You can also use it to install GA4, Google Ads, and they're actually even adding in like an attribution kind of element of the software that's basically would just be tacked on for free. It's pretty crazy. So if you're running Twitter ads, if you're running any other TikTok ads, any other ad platform like that, BILY can also install with them. Basically a one-stop shop replacement for Google Tag Manager. It's really slick, really awesome. Go to BILY.ai and start getting more conversions today. It's more affordable than the other solutions on the market as well. It's just really great. Go to BILY, install it. The thing is, if your business is going to be here in 2 or 3 years, then that longer tail of LTV actually matters. Like, it really does. Like, those customers are going to be bankable revenue. Now, I'm not saying that means that you should create a timeline where you don't get your money back on the customers that you acquire until year 2 or whatever. But like, I'll see something where, like, let's say a brand has 100% LTV in a year. It should be really good for a lot of brands. Okay. By which I mean, if a customer spends $1 today, they spend another $1 over the course of that first year. Very often that customer is now going to spend another 50 cents in year 2 and maybe another 25 cents in year 3. And sometimes I've even seen it be more durable than that. And the larger that initial batch of LTV is, right? That 100% number that I referenced. Like if it's actually 300% because you have a subscription supplement brand, or 400% or whatever, the larger the effect of that long tail of LTV is over the future years, and the more value it's going to drive in the long term. And what that really is an argument to err on the side of aggressiveness if you have serious LTV in your business. Now, serious LTV businesses, by err on the side of aggressiveness, I mean on your ad spend. It means you probably have a better argument, all other things being equal, cash concerns notwithstanding, etc., like to go acquire customers. Because if your business is going to be here next year, then that value matters. It counts. That the customer, the long tail of value is real value in your business, and it will keep creating that. And the more customers you acquire who are going to produce that over more time, the more money you are going to make. So again, there's a danger here, right? But if number 2 and number 3, the danger is overspending on customers who don't pan out. But if number 2, if those customers are more durable than you think, then if that's true too, and I think they are, right, then there actually is an argument to be fairly aggressive for particularly high LTV brands to go and acquire customers at real scale, because you're spending that money today and you need to make sure you're tracking your revenue, over the next 3 months. This is why a cohort forecast is so helpful. You should not do what I'm saying right now if you are not good at forecasting your revenue with a cohort forecast. You absolutely should not do that. You also shouldn't do it if you don't have a cash flow forecast in place, if you don't have a clear sense of how cash is moving through your business. Like, you got to be a good operator here. There's a lot of details of this. But if that's real, there is an argument to stay more aggressive and to keep building a better, larger group of customers, because that LTV does go for longer than you think. This is particularly true, like I said, in higher LTV businesses like subscription. The other type of businesses that I've seen this be the case in is apparel businesses, where sometimes apparel businesses have really sticky customers. And I think it's because the way apparel businesses grow revenue, I'll talk more about this in a second, with returning customers, is they add product drops, right? So if I buy a shirt from your business and I like it, that's great. Like, if I like your clothes, there's a good chance I'm going to buy from you consistently without even much degradation of my buying patterns, sometimes with an even increase in my buying patterns, right? Over a long time. I've been buying my same Born Primitive workout shorts for a really, really long time because I love them. Same with their underwear, like their boxer briefs. I think they're the greatest boxer briefs in the game. So I'm going to buy them for forever. And when my last pair runs out or whatever, probably not last pair, I'll buy it before that. But like, you see what I'm saying, right? When you get a brand whose clothes you love, you will keep buying from them for a really long time. Plus, again, if you are as a brand, an apparel brand getting better, and this is often true with growing apparel brands, as they grow often get better at releasing more products more often, getting sort of more professional about their product development process, releasing products across more different parts of a customer's potential wardrobe. Born Primitive is a good example of this. So in the last couple of years, they released shoes, and they had been working on that for a long time. Well, guess what? A lot of customers already loved, their female customers. They sold a lot of sports bras and leggings ahead of time, and their male customers, they sold a lot of workout shorts and shirts over that time. Well, if you love those and you love that brand, you buy some shoes. And so the only reason I don't own a pair yet is because they were sold out when I looked, right? They were doing so well. And so that actually increases that value over time. Those customers are worth a lot. So apparel businesses in particular have this dynamic in play, I think, where the more that you have that, and it's really any brand that has like a reason to do consistent product releases over a long period of time, that's the way you create that value for in a category where customers have a reason to keep coming back. Okay. So just to recap again, number 1, forecast it, manage it and forecast it. Measure it and forecast it. Number 2, it's more durable than you think. Number 3, it lasts for longer than you think. Number 4, here's the other thing, it's less changeable than you think. And what I mean by that is, it is hard, very hard to make a major impact on your LTV. Now, I'm going to tell you how to do that, but at least it is hard to do that with tactics, okay? So it actually is very possible to make a very large impact on your LTV, but it's not by typically getting people to change their behavior in relationship to their product. Like, here's a classic one that people try to do with tactics. They say, like, we're going to acquire a customer on product A, and then we'll convince them to go over to product B. Like, that's not impossible. And again, in certain categories like apparel, like I just mentioned, it's much more possible because that's sort of part of what it means for a customer to buy that product. But beyond that, it's actually extremely hard to cross-sell to past customers. The vast majority of the LTV you're going to create is going to be people rebuying the product they initially bought in a lot of different categories. Okay, again, there's exceptions to this. Probably depends on your category a little bit. Apparel is the obvious exception here, but people mostly are going to rebuy the product they already have. So you can, people will say this, we'll acquire customers on this product, which doesn't have very good LTV, but that's because we're doing a bad job of selling them the other product. So product A, bad LTV product, but easy customer acquisition product. We'll sell them product B, which is a much better LTV product. And we'll do that after selling them product A with great email and SMS. The thing is, it's just extremely hard to do that. Customers just don't actually do that nearly as much as you would think. So you can, don't get me wrong, this can work some, but it's just a less viable thing at scale than you think. It is harder to do at a lot of volume than you think. Mostly customers are going to rebuy the product they already bought in many, many categories, okay? Sending better segmented email, sending better designed email, updating your, changing your packaging, right? This is another thing people do. They'll say like, well, we can create a better experience by having better packaging and better, whatever. All of those things may add little bits on the margin to your business, and you should do everything you can. You should bend over backwards to create great customer experiences and great customer funnels. You should communicate about it as well as you possibly can. Yes, 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 right? At the same time, it is just much more of a genetic element. LTV is much more of a genetic element of your company and of your product than you think, except for a few key things, okay? And let me get into them now. So actually the first warning there is this. Whatever your past LTV is, when you forecast it, this is another way of putting it, you should expect your future, until you can prove otherwise, to look a lot like your past. Don't go and say like, and forecast your future LTV with like a giant uptick in the amount of customers who come back in the future, because you're going to go do all this tactical stuff to fix it. I've talked about a brand I worked with for a while that had like 25% LTV in a year. And we hammered away at all this different stuff. We tried to introduce subscription. We tried to what was I going to say? We tried to introduce subscription. We tried to send more email. We tried to come up with all, whatever. We could not really bump it. It just was at 25%. And I don't know, maybe we got it to 27% or something like that. But it didn't really make a meaningful material difference in the business, especially relative to the effort it required. And that's because LTV is primarily a function of your customer's relationship to the product. It is not something else. It is your customer's relationship to the product. Okay. And so because of that, because the way in that case, that was definitely the case, right? The brand I just talked about. The example of this I use all the time actually is FC Goods, wallets made out of vintage baseball gloves, right? Like we were never going to be able to sell people more wallets once they had bought their first wallet. Some customers who bought gifts said they were going to buy as a gift for somebody else, and they probably did. Got a little bit of LTV off that. So that, they bought the same gift for multiple people. Great. But like once somebody bought a wallet, there was actually one customer who bought a bunch of wallets from us who really loved them, right? But like that was one customer, okay? I still remember I talked to him about what he was doing. Like it was just like a hobby. It became a hobby for him. He just liked it. So yeah, that's the way to think about this. That's an extreme example, but it is about the way your customer relates to the product first and foremost, and therefore it's really, really hard to change with tactics, okay? All right, so if you can change it, how can you do it? And there are some things to mention here. They're just not quite the thing that people think of tactically. It's not like media buying in that respect, where it can make a really big difference, okay? So let's talk about number 5, ways to change and ways to impact, I should say, your LTV, okay? Okay, so I'm going to go through a few of them here. We're all going to put them in this subcategory, and then we're going to split one out separately, okay? First, send more email and SMS. And I want to be clear about what I just said. Send more email and SMS. Not more targeted email and SMS, not more segmented email and SMS. The number one way to use email to drive more revenue than you're driving right now is to send more email. People are not annoyed by your emails. They may unsubscribe a little bit, but it's not going to really create a serious problem in your business. If they were unsubscribing, sometimes it's actually good churn. They weren't going to buy from you anyway. Send more, send more, send more. Okay. If you're sending 2 emails a week right now, start working right now on getting it to 4. Now, again, if you have very little to talk about in your business because you have the same couple of products, there isn't much to say, fair enough. But send more email and SMS for most businesses is the way to use that channel to drive more returning customer revenue. That simple. Again, probably not going to overhaul your business completely, your LTV completely, but may make some difference, at least on the edges. And sometimes if you have a wide enough group of products and a wide enough product catalog, you can actually create a more meaningful amount of value here. Okay, but it's really hard. uh, mostly just send more email and SMS. Okay. Number two, this is the thing that almost everybody thinks about wrong with LTV. And it's that the way you generate LTV is not by getting a customer to, relate differently to the product that they already bought, but it is to release more products and have more sales. Okay. So more sales is dangerous because you can sometimes just cannibalize your own revenue. So we're going to leave that aside. What you'll see pretty much every year at Black Friday is that there is a big bump in your cohort value at Black Friday. And this is sort of the indication of what I'm talking about. It will be incremental to some degree, having a promotion, especially for products and categories where customers might want to rebuy at some point. Well-considered promotions can definitely create additional revenue. But the point of this is that you create LTV in moments, not by improving your evergreen processes. Like, here's the thing that people go down the road of that is just like a waste of their time. They decide that the way they're going to improve LTV is by building really careful flows in their email post-purchase for customers, and they're going to let those run in the background and make it so that every customer is more valuable after they buy. That's like sort of the evergreen LTV approach, where what you're trying to do is make it so that somewhere in the background it's just kind of working for you, right? That's not how LTV works. Actually, the way it works is by releasing more new products that are going to be interesting to customers that make sense. Now, in some categories, again, this is going to be a very small needle mover. I think about personal care here. A lot of personal care brands try to do this, where it's like, the core product is a skincare product, let's say, and all of that. And then they'll release on the side a body wash product. And the body wash may get a little revenue bump, but it's not going to be a crazy needle mover. The categories where this makes more sense, actually, is something like, and I used this example earlier, when you hear Sean Frank talk about what they do at Ridge, you hear him reference this. When they were just selling wallets, they were never going to have much LTV. But at some point, they add backpacks and rings and whatever else they're doing, EDC stuff, and that is the way that they have been able to generate more money by doing enough of that over enough time and really transforming from being a wallet brand to a brand that has more products across, I don't even know what you would call the category anymore. Okay. So that, I think, is a more possible way to do it, but it typically is a slow build over time, because mostly one single additional product release is not going to move the needle that much. You have to do it over time, over a lot of time, and create moment after moment after moment to where people start to relate to your brand as more than just a single product brand. And that's really, really hard work. Again, the exception to this is apparel, where customers already relate to apparel in this way. And so you drive LTV by just increasing the volume of apparel, of products that you put out. More product releases and perhaps more sales there. Often end of season sales can work really, really well for this. But you start driving more product releases there, you can make a huge impact on the LTV in your business in that kind of category. It's much harder, like I said, in categories where you really are kind of perceived as a single product business from the customer. Okay. But product releases and sales, if you have the right business for it, can make a big difference. Number 3, retention ads. This is something that has surprised me. Again, this is especially true in products in categories like apparel, where you're releasing new stuff all the time and no one is going to pay attention to all of your emails. So I have, for every one of my clients, some amount of money, and it's usually a small amount, allocated in my Facebook ad account to retention revenue, right? So reaching past customers. So driving revenue with past customers is is possible. Driving incremental revenue with past customers is possible with ads. And I've watched this happen where like you just set up an ad account. I typically, like, if I'm running the main ad account at a 2-to-1, I'm going to run my retention ads at like a 5-to-1, because I don't want to just cannibalize email or whatever. And I do think your past customers probably have, ads are not going to be the only thing that's going to drive revenue. Some of those ads are probably less incremental than others. So I want to run them at a higher ROAS than others, but it really will add incremental returning customer revenue to your business by setting up some retention spend, right? Sometimes, and typically I'm auto bidding this like $100 a day for the brand, or depending on how much their spend is, maybe $500 a day if they have a larger spend, where I'm just setting aside some revenue, targeting exclusively returning customers, and running at a really high ROAS. You will see additional returning customer revenue by doing that. And that's simply because people are just not going to pay attention to every email you send. Many of them are going to end up in their promotions folder. They're not going to pay attention. They're not on your SMS list, whatever. They just forget about you, lose sight of you, even if they like your brand. And it's a good way to just drive some additional value in the business. Okay. Again, the more products you have, the more that makes sense because they're going to have a really hard time staying up with all the things that you're doing. All right. And number 4, and this is the thing, if what I said earlier is true about how the LTV in your business is mostly a genetic element of a customer's relationship to the product, i.e., it's very hard to get somebody to interact with a product differently at the level of LTV than they do naturally, right? If they don't need to refill your product, they're not going to buy it faster, right? If they have plenty of your product, even if they use it every day, there's no reason for them to buy more of it, right? I subscribe, for example, to my coffee. Shout out Sweet Bloom Roasters in Colorado, the greatest craft coffee that I know of. They're amazing. I've had a subscription there forever. I bet I'm one of their highest LTV customers of all time, right? And the only reason I buy more coffee from them is because I am out of coffee, or if I have guests staying at my house where I'm making more coffee than I usually would when it's just coffee for me and my wife in the morning. Like, you just can't sell me more coffee because I just don't need it. I drink it 1 cup every morning. Occasionally, I have a second cup during the day, but that's pretty rare. And so there's no reason for me to buy more. Like, that's happening with your skincare. That's happening with your deodorant. That's even happening with clothes to some degree, depending on your category. Not always, of course. Some people are just buying clothes all the time. There's just some elements where that's going to be really hard to overcome, which means sometimes the way to drive additional LTV in your business is actually just focus on a different product. And this is a really underrated thing. The thing I see happen a lot here is that brands find that they start acquiring customers in their Facebook ads account on product A. All right. And product A is their customer acquisition product. And so because the ads work for that, they start making more ads for that product. But what they don't realize is that's not really the best product to acquire customers on because the LTV isn't that good. And what they really need to do is put more effort into selling product B to their customers because that's higher LTV. Now, it's hard to do it. Because product A is where you had the least friction in terms of advertising to customers. But if you can either release product B or C or whatever, or you can start finding ways to acquire customers on a product that you were not acquiring customers before, that's where you can materially change the LTV in your business because you're materially changing the kind of customer and the kind of product relationship that you're getting, right? So again, if the LTV of a customer is primarily related to their natural relationship to their product, right, then the way to generate more LTV in your business is to acquire a different kind of customer and a different kind of product. That's the way to do it. And so think about that in your business, right? This was something that we tried to do at FC Goods. I mentioned earlier, the wallets made out of baseball gloves, because we thought about okay, we're never going to get out from under this. What happens if we could find other product categories that related to similar customers, made sense for the brand, but that had better LTV? Now, we never cracked that. We didn't have the business for long enough to really do it, but we were starting to think that way. When we were running that brand, and I have this conversation all the time with clients. You start looking through Lifetimely, you start looking through the Shopify cohort report, whatever it is, and you realize oh my gosh, you sort by first product purchased, and you start doing that. That's ways to do that, right? Go install Lifetimely or go just look in the Shopify cohort report and start looking at LTV by first product purchase. You can do this fairly easily, okay? And again, actually, it's in Shopify. You don't have to install a third-party software to begin to see some of this information. Go to that cohort report and go look and sort by first product purchase and see how do customers relate differently LTV wise with different products, and start thinking about how do you acquire the best kind of customers, or how do you think about your product development pipeline so that you can acquire better customers as well. Okay. So focus on different products. All right. There's a fifth one, and we're going to give it its own category. All right. And so I'm going to walk back through where we've been so far one more time, and then we're going to jump to to this last way to change your LTV. And you probably know what it is if you're thinking about this, but it's still really important to focus on. Okay. So number 1, you need to measure and forecast LTV in your business. Number 2, LTV is more durable than you think. Number 3, LTV lasts for longer than you think. Number 4, LTV is less changeable than you think on a given product. And number 5, that means the ways to change it are sending more email and SMS, having more product releases and sales, running retention-focused ads, and focusing on different products in general, okay? There's a fifth one on that list, on number 5, so 5.5 here. Sorry if this is getting confusing. And it's this: subscription has outsized value. The only way I know of to seriously change a customer's relationship to your product, okay, and to where the two different customers, well, let's say it like this: the same customer with the same product can have a massive change to their LTV is by getting them to subscribe to it, just by reducing friction. And again, like people are busy. They're not thinking about things. Even if they like your product, they may just forget to reorder it or something changes. Like go back to my coffee example. Okay. In my coffee example that I mentioned earlier, if I didn't subscribe to that product, if I had to go online and buy my coffee every time, at some point I would just forget, even if I prefer it, even if I like the product more, right? Even if it's my favorite coffee in the world, at some point I'd be like, I just forgot. I'll just go to the store and get some other coffee or go to my local coffee shop and get some other coffee. Now, I don't want to do that because I prefer Sweet Bloom to every other coffee in the world. And I mean that. I love it. It's great. Once again, if you're a third wave coffee snob, go get some Sweet Bloom, get it delivered to your house. It's delicious. Okay. But sometimes you just forget, you get busy. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. I can't stay up with everything in life. Subscription really, really helps me. I really like buying products that way because I don't have to think about it. And that is happening in your business all the time, even for customers who love your product. There's just a lot going on in life and they forget about it. And so subscription has a massive outsized value in your business, and acquiring subscribers has a massive outsized value in your business. It's very hard to convert a non-subscriber to a subscriber. And so the way to actually generate subscriptions is to acquire subscribers in the first place. And I am telling you, I regularly look at cohort data that shows that subscribers are worth 2 to 3 times as much as non-subscribers, especially when you do the very long tail. These are the customers who are worth like 500% in increase in a year, and then another 300% the next year, and another 200% the year after that. Like they have an extremely long tail of value because, like my coffee example, I have been drinking that coffee now for a long time. Those subscriptions show up for a long time. And so too many brands that I see that have a real meaningful way to generate subscription. Now, don't do this if there's not a good way to actually subscribe. Like if subscription doesn't make sense in your business, don't try to get subscribers. But if you try to, if subscription does make sense for your product, you should be building funnels so that customers subscribe to your products. You should be doing that because those customers are worth so much more, and you should be willing to pay more for those customers, even if you have to acquire them at a loss. They're often worth so much more that it is worth doing. And so again, I watch this happen sometimes where I've looked at agencies who are working with brands, and they are bending over backwards to try to acquire new customers with ads. And they're not thinking strategically about the value of the customer to the business. And they're not thinking strategically about, wait a minute, every moment of our effort should be spent on acquiring subscribers because they are so much more valuable. And again, people worry so much. If you acquire subscribers with a big discount, 30% off on your first subscription purchase or big gift with purchase or whatever it is, that those customers are going to be less valuable because you acquired them with a big discount. It's wrong. It's wrong. Those customers are still really valuable. They still wanted your product enough to be willing to subscribe the first time. Yes, you'll get some same day cancels, but it's not enough to overturn the value that you create with subscribers. So if there is a meaningful opportunity in your business to create subscribers, and what I'm not talking about an apparel business here trying to get people to subscribe to get a new product drop once a quarter or whatever, right? This is why all the box businesses, like maybe they kind of work, but I don't know. I guess FabFitFun's still out there working, but like the subscription box thing seems to have gone away because it isn't actually a great way to relate to the product, right? But for brands where it actually makes sense for them to subscribe, like you absolutely should be trying everything you can to build funnels. Like this is where Fermat has been an incredible tool for one of my clients. The tool that the client that I've used Fermat with, right, to build these funnels has been a subscription focused client. That's the client where we saw a 50% increase in spend. And the reason why it's so valuable is because we realized we needed to build as tight and good of a funnel as possible and offer test as fast and as much as possible so that we could drive more subscriptions. And because of that, we actually were able to do that. And we want to keep hammering away at that offer in that funnel because every one of those customers are absolutely so valuable to us. And so we bent over backwards to go find the right offer and to go find the right messaging to make it so the subscription makes sense and test elements on the page to make sure subscription makes sense. Okay. So that's what you should be thinking about for this business, for your business. You should be thinking about how to drive more subscribers if you have a chance. If subscription is part of your business, start thinking about how to drive more of them. Okay. I'm not going to go back through that whole list. I hope this this has been a helpful episode to you. The reason I'm not going to go back through the whole list, I've done it like 4 times in this episode. You've got them all there. Don't forget, go to ajfgrowth.com to get my cohort forecast resources. Like I said, go sign up for admission. The link is there if you want some help thinking about your business this way, thinking about cohort forecasting. All of that is there. If you have questions for me about this, please do send them to me, podcast@ajfgrowth.com, or actually even better, ask them to me publicly on Twitter by tagging @AndrewJFerris so that we can have the conversation in public where other people can get value out of it. Thanks so much for watching, for listening. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're doing that, and do follow up with my sponsors on this episode. That's BILY in this case. Follow up with BILY, who is amazing, and go get better pixel tracking for your website at BILY.ai. Thanks so much. Talk to you next time.